And a lot of people ask me, well, you were saved for a purpose and for a reason. And, for me, I can't really accept that just straight out because I knew all those people up there. They were us.
Sure.
They were the same. I'm no more special than them. I mean, I'm special, but as they are special, as you're special, as we're all special.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I realized that was not the right question. The right question is not why me, but what am I going to do with this gift that I've been given?
Mm.
And so that was when I decided that I need to be the one to create my dream life.
That is such a powerful story, and I'm so, I love how present you are to your life and how you were paying attention. And I think it's really powerful that when you made that decision, what is one step that I can take to be more present to my life, on that fateful day. And you were at that crossroads, just like you said. And you could have just kind of gone with the regular old program, like what you were used to doing, which, could have been easy to have done. And you made that choice, and it changed your life and your family and all of the people that you work with. It's really an amazing, amazing story.
I find that there's so many great reasons why people just keep doing what they're doing. That's the easier road.
Mm-hmm.
The harder road, right? The harder road is really owning and acting on a change that's tied back to your values. But we're in such a reactive world right now. There's so much technology that's distracting us rather than supporting us. There are so many things that take us away from being present. Even when we're present, we're not present. People are having conversations standing next to each other through their phones and through texting and whatever.
Exactly.
And right, if you ever just try to unplug, it's an exercise I do with my clients. I just stop. I say, all right, we're gonna sit for 120 seconds of silence, 2 minutes. And man, for them, it feels like it is forever. Just 2 minutes. 2 minutes of stillness feels like forever to people now because we're just constantly hit with something. We need to react to something. We need noise. We need something. It's just this frenetic environment that we're living in, and it's causing us to stay distracted.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah.
For me, the dream life, part of it is getting present to all of the little things again.
Mm-hmm.
Just a quick story. My grandmother, she just turned 96. God bless her, right? And
wonderful.
She said to me years ago, and I like to talk to people that are in their 80s and 90s because their perspective and their perception of the world is just so fascinating. And one day she was leaving my house, and she said, Michael, I wish you good fortune and good health.
Mm-hmm.
And then as she's walking away, she looks back and she says, good health first. The little things that we have to be grateful for.
Yeah.
We can always find something, right? We can always focus on the gaps. There's always a gap. There's always somebody higher up on the mountain than us, and we're always looking up there saying, man, if I was only up there. But at the same time, there's someone below us looking at us saying the same thing. And so it's really, where are you going to focus? Are you going to focus on acknowledging all the beauty that you have in your life right now, even with all the things that are missing?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you going to focus on the gap and define that that's what your life is? It's the gap. It's what's missing. That's the way I feel about my life. And it's really your choice on what you focus on.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And, what I hear from you is just such a being present. And it can be so easy, like you said, to get really distracted because we just live in this kind of like 24/7 media streaming, sensationalistic kind of environment. And it is really pretty easy to get caught up in that because that's what the norm is for most people. And, just like you were saying, your life was good, but not necessarily great, that you were kind of on a treadmill. And this pivotal point for you really, it was, I love that term that you used, the human wake-up call. I mean, you really experienced that for yourself. Really amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. I'd love for you to share a little bit about how you teach about that. I know that this is such a message for you and that you've created some principles that you teach others to live powerfully. If you could share some of those, that would be fabulous.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're probably not going to want to get into all of them, but really, for me, the framework for changing your life, what I call rewriting your tomorrow, right? So
that's great too. I love that, rewriting your tomorrow.
Rewrite your tomorrow. If you're going through the same things, if you're taking that normal train, your life tomorrow is going to look kind of like it did today. So what you need to do is really create an intention, really get back to your foundation, really redefine who you are, not by what you do, but by your character, by what's important to you, by your core values. That's who you are. And you can be that anytime you choose to be that. But you need to know what that is first. And so for me, it all starts, number one, with shifting your perspective. Shift your perspective into the fact that anything is possible. And an example of that is after 9/11, in the days after 9/11, there was virtually no crime in New York City. Almost no crime at all. Now, why was that? Was that because all the criminals were in the tower that day, and they were all caught up in that? No. It's because everybody decided to make a different choice that day, right? Everybody thought beyond themselves into something that was bigger. And that's a choice they made. And so if I were going to tell you before 9/11 that it's possible that there's almost going to be no crime in the next few days in New York, you would have said that's not possible. But it is possible. It just depends on the choices we're making. I'm not saying it's practical. I'm saying it's possible. See, when we start getting stuck in practical, that's when we start putting up all those limits on ourselves. Well, I don't know how to do that. To start, you don't have to focus on how. You have to focus on what. And so when you shift your perspective into one that's anything's possible, it's time for you to take the reins. Accountability. Just like me, I realized on that September 10th lunchtime that no one was going to do it for me. I had to be the one to do it. So it's all about you. And the second thing is then, well, where do you want to head? See, the reason, even after 9/11, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have that pull. Change happens when you have two powerful forces working. A push that's saying you can't stay where you are. And that's a lot of times what a wake-up call is, right?
Right.
So you have a near miss. You have somebody gets sick. You get sick. You lose something very sacred to you, a person or a thing. Something happens that shakes you by the shoulders and says you cannot keep doing things the way you're doing them. That's a push. That gets you on what I call the rickety bridge, right? So imagine that you're on this plateau and you want to get to the other side, and in between you is only one of those rope bridges, and it's swaying in the wind, and it looks really scary and dangerous. Well, what's going to get you on and across that bridge? One thing is a push, but when you're getting pushed, you're going to resist. So that's not enough by itself. Okay, the other thing you need is to have a pull, and that pull is that compelling vision, that meaning, that reason, something that's going to give you that strength and confidence to continue going across that rickety bridge all the way to the other side. And with both of these forces working, that's how you affect change in your life. For me, I had the push, but I still didn't have the pull. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't even know coaching or speaking really existed at the time. But then about a year and a half later, somebody said, hey, you'd be a great coach. And I was like, yeah, when my daughter's older, I'll coach softball and soccer. She said, no, a life coach. What the heck is a life coach? And so after you have this shift in perspective, then you need to have a sense of purpose. And so I went right upstairs and I started researching it. Normally I would have been like, hey, thanks, that's a nice thought. But because I had this new intention, I knew I had to own it. So I went right upstairs, I researched it, and a whole new world opened up for me, one that I didn't know existed.
That is fascinating.
Now, it had already existed, but it didn't exist for me. Therefore, there was no possibility around it. And so the third thing you need to do as you create your sense of purpose is to play. I know one of the things you like to talk about is what is it that's going to get you your confidence? What is it that's going to help you move forward? And for me, people think they know before they do. But to know without doing is not to know. Okay, you can conceptually think you know something, but it's really the experience that's going to give you the insights. It's going to give you the wisdom. It's going to give you the confidence. It's going to give you the courage. You need to do it and then do it again and then do it again. That's where confidence comes from. You can't wait until you're confident to do something. It doesn't work that way. You get confidence by doing something. And so if you can take the concept of playing, which takes some of the pressure off, you don't have to commit to a lifelong change. Taste before you buy. Go out there, stick a toe in, experience something. That's how you start to move along and further define that vision and further strengthen that foundation, that foundation of confidence and understanding and insight.